The country may be looking forward to a more relaxed summer, but the government and its scientific advisors are looking further ahead and how to guard against COVID springing back when restrictions are lifted. If the virus takes off again, it's reported children aged 12 and over could be offered a single dose of the Pfizer vaccine when school starts in September. A decision will depend on what COVID rates do next and clinical trials.
With some of the more transmissible variants, it does seem that children may be playing a bit more of a role in spreading the virus, and they may do so innocently without knowing that they are infected. So there is an argument for spreading vaccines into younger age groups, in part to try and reduce transmission when schools go back in the autumn particularly.
If you come into close contact with another user...
Possible changes too in what we have to do if one of our close contacts has COVID. A government-backed trial will see 40,000 people pinged or rung up by Test and Trace told they don't have to self-isolate for 10 days, but can take lateral flow tests for a week instead. The proportion of people who actually see quarantine through is small. On the trial, so long as they test negative every morning, people are free to live life as normal. There'll be 2 PCR lab tests as backup.
We know from previous studies that about 18% of contacts of cases test positive. If you think about, so that's maybe approximately 1 in 5. The other 4 in 5 are people who are not carrying the infection, who are currently having to isolate. If we're able to identify those 4 in 5 who are not infected and allow them to continue with their normal life to a degree, complying still with other sensible precautions, that will help all of us return to greater normality.
There are warnings of a dangerous divide between the haves and the have-nots when it comes to vaccinations and treatment. In India, people are dying because hospitals are short of oxygen. This has been the country's darkest day since the pandemic began, with 3,689 deaths. Britain is sending 1,000 more ventilators, but the Foreign Secretary said India hasn't asked us to share any vaccines.
That's not something we're currently discussing, but of course we'll collaborate very closely with our Indian friends as we have done right the way through this pandemic.
The government says the relationship with India is important to Britain, and it will look very carefully at any request for vaccines.
Well, more than 15 million people in the UK have now been fully vaccinated as ministers stress the importance of everyone getting their second jab for maximum protection from the virus. The latest 24-hour government figures show 143,000 people received their first dose of the vaccine yesterday. More than 370,000 people had their second dose. 34.5 million people have now received their first dose of a vaccine, while more than 15 million people have had both jabs. A further 14 people are reported to have died with COVID, and there have been another 1,600 new cases in the UK. Well, earlier I spoke to Professor Anthony Harnden, who's Deputy Chair of the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunisation, the group of experts which advises the government on vaccines. And I started by asking him whether his committee is in favour of vaccinating children.
We're currently thinking about it. We haven't reviewed the evidence yet. Currently, no vaccine is licensed for the use in the under-16s and children, though there is Pfizer undergoing studies and have given a preprint to suggest it's very efficacious in children over the age of 12.
But potentially, given children, by and large, don't get very ill at all from COVID, you're asking them to make quite a sacrifice for the rest of the population, which is a kind of running theme of this pandemic, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Kathy. Young people have made huge sacrifices for the benefit predominantly of older people in society. And that is why on JCVI we would take these considerations very carefully. We will not be recommending vaccination in children unless there are very good, solid reasons to do so, either from an indirect protection point of view for the rest of the community, or, as I say, to protect them against illness which will prevent them from disrupt their education, or prevent them from getting long COVID.
Are we still on track to offer every UK adult a vaccine by the end of July?
At the moment, yes. Whilst we don't have any special inside information on supply on JCVI, I have no reason to believe that supply is going to be disruptive and that we can't just carry on as we are at the moment.
There have been some reports, though, in London and in Lancashire particularly, that there's been a delay to second doses being offered. Is there a looming problem there?
I don't think this is a systematic problem. We've immunised 96% of those that are eligible for their second dose within the 12-week period in England. And I believe the other three devolved nations are doing extremely well as well. So I don't think that's a systematic problem, no.
Given, as you've said, the huge success of the UK's vaccine rollout, don't we have a moral obligation to just slow that progress just a little to help the terrible scenes, the terrible crisis we've seen in countries like India, for example?
Well, I think we need to do both. I think we need to press on with our vaccination programme, but we need to support other countries. Of course, what we're seeing in India at the moment, the great fear is that that will happen in other populous countries as well. And we need to work out ways in which we can distribute vaccines and supplies to these countries to enable them to vaccinate their populations.
Do we have the capacity, in your view, to send more vaccines to countries like India than we have done to date?
Well, I think as we know, India do manufacture a lot of their own vaccines, which is excellent news. Yes, we do need to support these other countries, and when we've completed our own vaccination of our own population, then we do need to make sure that we can carry on contributing to the world's vaccination program. In any emergency situation, which we're all in, it's very important to get your own house in order so that you can help other people. And as any first aider would know, your own safety is the first thing, and then you're in a position to help people. So I think we're right to press on, but I think we're also right to help and support these other countries.
Professor Anthony Harnden, thanks very much.